If you're familiar with the content of the scripture, especially from any of the Abrahamic faiths, or even if you're just a casual observer of the words of God, you're probably familiar with all the beings that have been mentioned within those hallowed pages. Whether it's the angels of the Lord, the lion that Samson had to deal with at the beginning of his journey as the scourge of the Philistines, the whale that swallowed Jonah when he tried to run away from God's instructions, the speaking donkey that warned Balaam of the dangers ahead, or even the beast that represents antiChrist in the book of Revelations, the Bible is filled with tales of fascinating and even terrifying beasts that would leave the reader's eyes wide open with fear and awe. That being said, no other creature in the Bible surpasses the Behemoth in terms of awe and a numbing fear factor. Considering to be the king of all land animals, whose roar was a peace symbol for all of Earth's animals, the Behemoth was definitely a sight for sore eyes. Surprisingly enough, though, not much is known about what exactly the Behemoth was, other than its humongous size, perhaps even larger than prehistoric dinosaurs. So today we've decided to take a look at this prehistoric being and unlock the secrets of its life on Earth. So sit back as we show you the terrifying secrets of this enormous beast. As we mentioned earlier, there's very little that has been documented about the Behemoth as it is. In fact, in the Bible, references to the Behemoth can only be found in the book of Job. What we do know, though, is that it was the main land creature created by God at the beginning of time. This beast's so powerful that only God could defeat him. It's speculated that at the time of its creation, it was birthed alongside the Leviathan, the lord of the seas that got corrupted soon after its creation, and this the dominant beings of the sky. In Job 40 of the Bible, the Behemoth is described as a creature that eats grass just like oxen. It's noted for its strong waist, stomach muscles, and a long and bushy tail that swayed like a cedar tree. Its tightly knit thigh muscles, powerful bones that are strong like bronze tubes, and limbs like iron rods. So rightfully, only God can approach it with his sword. As a matter of fact, even the raging rivers didn't worry him, as the river Jordan could flow into its mouth with ease. The peak of its power was thought to have materialized during the summer solstice, especially around June the 21st, a day when the power of its roar was enough to nullify all wild creatures nearby, especially predatory ones. So as such, much might even consider the Behemoth to be a protector of the weaker animals. All these attributes point to the fact that the Behemoth is definitely no chump, as it only seems to bow to the power of God and nobody else. Impressive, with powerful bellies and limbs, its ability to engorge itself on the waters of the River Jordan betrays just how massive this creature must have been. However, despite such an imposing stature, it must be a bit of a relief to hear that this creature seemed to have a mild temperament. Said to hide underneath the shades of trees near rivers, its predisposition towards being a herbivore also adds to its reputation of being something of a gentle giant. Scientists and other experts believe that the Behemoth might be some sort of primordial hippopotamus, or maybe even the legendary mammoth. However, there seems to be evidence that argues against the Behemoth being an earthly creature of any sort. So let's look into it. First off, let's start with the creature's tail, long and bushy, swaying like a cedar tree. Some believe that this literal interpretation of the tale is incorrect, because many seem to forget that Hebrew tends to avoid literal interpretation of some things, especially when it comes to things that might relate to the genitals of humans of nature. As such, some may translate this long tail to be the genitals of the Behemoth. This is given credit as to the nature of the movement of the tail, as sway can be translated as moving or to move, or to stand up straight and stretch out like something male genitalia do in most animals. Next up, although some may liken the Behemoth to cattle or ox, as even the word of cattle in Hebrew is Behemoth, but whether the Behemoth is an ancestor of the cow or ox is still unknown. As alluded to earlier, the Behemoth is quite unlike the Leviathan, which seems to seek out chaos where it can, boiling and consuming humans whole just by merely opening its gigantic mouth. This may be attributed to the fact that shortly after the Leviathan's creation with a female partner, the creation was corrupted by chaos, and this forced God to destroy the female partner because together they might be too powerful to control, and it was imperative to prevent this from happening as well as to also prevent these powerful creatures of chaos from ever procreating. This is much unlike our gentle giant, who it is said may have been created to protect humans from the seemingly deranged Leviathan and other predators roaming the land. Thankfully, it comes with that almighty roar that the Behemoth bellows when it's at its full strength during the summer solstice. That being said, there are some who believe that the Behemoth was never some all-powerful giant that hid within the leaves of trees and reeds by the riverside. Instead, it's an analogy for the power and might of God, or maybe a creature that may have gone extinct. As it's already been disputed to a degree that the creature is an extinct species, it makes the belief that it's an analogy for the power of God more likely. This becomes even more believable when you take into account that this creature was actually a prominent fixture in many cultures during the times of the early Christians. As such, it's believed that the demotion of the Behemoth from being a god in one of those pagan religions to becoming one of the creatures of God displayed God's superiority over the lesser gods and their religions. However, this is still a theory. A small school of thought even believes that these may have been giants who were used to create much of the land we live on today. Either way, no matter what the belief may be, the general consensus is that the Behemoth was a creature that walked tall, its head held high, as it stood supreme amongst most, if not all, of God's creatures. Nonetheless, despite its stature, it remained a gentle giant that protected the weak with just the mere bellow of its voice. Whether or not it was an extinct creature or a creature of pure fabrication of the pagans, there's no doubt that it's also a representation of the power of God, literally or metaphorically. Well, that's all for today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified about our next videos. Trust me, you don't want to miss any of that.